Okay, so we're missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nobody, right?
Hey,
Katie?
here.
Everyone's here, so we can go ahead. We have a pretty full agenda for the work session. So let's begin by calling this meeting to order. And I believe we have no board and commission interviews this evening, correct, Katie?
Correct.
Okay. And we'll go on and see if there's anything on the regular agenda that anyone needs to have explained. If not, we're going to go to our updates, and we'll just start. I'll kind of do this alphabetically again. Karen Alexander.
Yes, I did attend the HPC meeting on the 13th, and there were a couple of public hearings for demolitions. Biggest takeaway is that in Mara's own, she can help me out if I need to explain this better, but they would like to know how they can assist the city council in their task of basically reviewing these properties and determining, just their approach to analyzing the value in these properties and making decisions about what can be demolished and what can't. One of the things that Mara shared with them was, and that they're aware of, is that we are currently discussing the racial, I can never remember that correct term, but the square footage of the properties that can be built based upon the square footage of the lot. And so that's one of the things that we're doing. She and Mara explained too, that, when people buy or own homes, we're limited from a legal perspective as to what we can actually, impose on them or tell them what they can or can't do. I mean, as long as the grass is cut and the house isn't falling down from an exterior perspective, we're pretty much limited in what we can do. His concern was basically, pretty much it looks like the only tool that they have in their arsenal is, to say whether there's any historic value to the property or not. But so the question that they asked for us, and they would like to hear from City Council, what is an expected direction on. They just like a little more direction into how they can approach their task. Did I do that okay, Mara?
Karen, if it helps a little, it's more just making sure that their priorities for their projects and what they want to work on aligns with the city council priorities. So they're just concerned that they're currently working on something related to at-risk properties. They want to make sure that what they're doing is in alignment with the council priorities.
So is that worthy of a future discussion with council, Mara and Karen?
Well, yeah, I think it is, because basically what they would like is for us to come back, is to come back to them with some type of direction.
Okay.
Mara, would you agree?
I would agree, not in the specifics of, they've done a text amendment recently, and we were all in agreement with that. I think they're just trying to make sure that you're working on code amendments for size of homes, you're working on code amendments, potentially looking at affordable housing, you're looking at different code amendments in all different elements, and you have a set of priorities that you're working on. And they just want to make sure that whatever they are also trying to achieve each year is in alignment with the council goals.
Okay.
When's the last? We do have a number of new members on that commission. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So are they aware that we spent the better part of a year working through text amendments on the demolition process? Because
only about this much.
Yeah, because I do think it's important that they understand that one of the big sort of code amendment things that they could be working on has just been revised before many of them came on. And I don't know if it's worth talking about that. And I know that the at-risk properties list is something that people have been trying to do for a long time, and it would be really nice to have movement on that. That's my 2 cents in this as a former HPC liaison.
And just know it's actually not the new members that are questioning it. It's one of our oldest members that's questioning that we're following the policy. We do have planned, just so you know, for the next HPC meeting, a full training, since almost half of the members have turned over. And I've scheduled it with Neil also to help with some of the legalities, and we're still getting a date set, but we're working on rescheduling that meeting because it's the same night as your budget work session.
Great. Let's keep this in mind here, because we're always concerned about these derelict properties, and I think sometimes they just diminish right in front of our very eyes, and how we're going to handle that is something that's worthy of a discussion. So Marie, let's put that on a future agenda topic for us. Okay, and David, you had a question or
I was just
comment?
going to ask, when we have a future agenda item, can the chair of the commission come and be present? That way we can ask him or her any questions that we may have.
That would be
And
great.
she actually was missing at the last meeting, so we're trying to get her back up to speed on the question.
Great. All right, so we have a good discussion to look forward to. Laura?
Yes, Sustainability Commission met yesterday. They are going to also want some work session time. A working group of them, and then it's been approved by the full Sustainability Commission, worked with Todd to come up with a north-south and then east-west bike lane / shared road, both. It's a mixture of those two, and Todd's been part of this, but they're going to formally have us consider that, or they're going to make a recommendation to do that. So I told them we're in budget season, so it isn't necessarily going to be an immediate time on work session, but that yes, that is a request from them that we spend some time on that. They have a couple new initiatives that they're working on. I think it's a little early to go into much detail about them, and I'll circle back to you when we know more. I did also do a National League of Cities webinar on the ARP
Good.
funds, and I'll save that for when we have our discussion about those funds.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Good. Pam?
Hi. I was going to say I have no updates, but I did want to just give a quick reminder that next Tuesday, a week from today, is Arbor Day, and there's going to be a celebration at Blackburn Park at 6 o'clock.
Thanks, Pam, for the
Sure.
reminder. David?
No updates, Mayor.
Sarah?
The Crossroads Special Business District met last week and spent most of their time meeting with a business owner there in their vicinity who they've had some parking disagreements with. It seemed like a really good discussion, and that they've got their ducks mostly in a row. I had to leave a couple minutes early for a prior commitment, but it sounded like things were kind of going in a good direction there. So it was nice to hear that sometimes talking it out works. But no other updates here.
Thank you. Emerson?
Yeah, I was able to attend the Old Webster Trade Association meeting this morning. I did have to leave a little earlier, but they have a full range of activities scheduled for this year. The Old Webster Summer Night Street Dance on June the 19th. The Jazz and Blues Festival, September the 18th. Old Webster Walker Fest, October 16th. The Trick or Treating in Webster Groves, October the 30th. Old Webster Holiday Open House, and Girls Night Out in Old Webster, and member cross promoting project, something that they're looking at. So I think they've planned out their year, and I'm sure they're going to share all the details with us, but it was a very good meeting. They accomplished quite a bit. They're getting back into the swing of things. Some things are pending on how the county release restrictions, but they're working towards that everything will be approved.
Great. Marie, do you have something?
Yes, ma'am. I actually have a couple of things. Good evening, everybody. We've got Chief Curtis with us. I hope you all received my note that we're going to push the CALIA recognition, to a future meeting date. But he is with us, and we will certainly make a big deal of that at a later time. So just wanted to share that because it is worthy of a big deal. Also want to share Douglas Hill redevelopment, as you all know, but for the folks watching, the model is available in City Hall for viewing. We've got links on our city website for public comments. We've got links on our different social media sites. I cannot thank Jennifer Conrad and Mara Perry enough. They have managed all of the comments coming in terms of organizing them, making sure they're in your packets, and making sure that there's responses given. The response is just a standard response at this time until the review is further down the road. But we've received a lot of public commentary. Would like to encourage the public to continue commenting. We want to hear from all of our residents. So wanted to share that. And then a little discussion from council regarding the budget session on May 11th, which is quickly coming up. But I sent you the email, and of course, Katie and I have been chatting as well, but need to make some determinations on council's preference on if that's going to be in person, virtual, or a combination of such.
So I think it's time we start thinking about meeting together. The council chambers is big enough that we can sit fairly far apart. We can social distance. And that would be my preference, but I need to hear from the rest of you. Budget session in person, starting some council meetings in person.
I agree with all the above, Mayor.
Same, I'm ready to hop in.
Is there anybody who's opposed to that?
I guess my question is, are we still going to make them available to participate online?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll have to do something that because we can't do this without having public availability to the meetings and to the budget work session. So if everyone's in agreement, Karen, is this okay with you?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay. All right, then Marie, looks like we'll get started on doing something in person. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Katie, anything from you?
No, Mayor, thank you.
And Neil, anything?
No, ma'am.
From you?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have just two things. Most of you were at the Police Community Engagement Board meeting with Webster University. That is something that we all had very recently, but since most of you were there, there's no need for me to update that. And there is apparently in the bylaws of the Webster Groves Historical Society, the mayor is supposed to appoint someone to the board of the Historical Society. So I'm going to ask you for some recommendations, or if any of you want to go and sit on the board of the Webster Groves Historical Society, can you let me know or give me some recommendations for someone that I can appoint to that position? They'd like that to happen soon, so I'll put that out there for your recommendations. Okay, just let me know. All right, let's go on to our topics then. The summer meeting schedule. I'm going to let that in the hands of Katie. Katie, we typically take off a meeting in August, and go ahead.
Oh, typically we do that, but the July, August, and September has always been open to take one of the meetings off, according to whatever everybody's schedules winding down for vacations.
So I guess we should ask, are there vacations scheduled this year that we want to work around? Is there some suggestion from council at some point that you perhaps can't attend? It looks like Emerson's going on a cruise around the world or something, Emerson.
Well, I have a vacation in June and I have another one in, I think it's September. So, but once I have internet, I can always attend.
Yeah, you can attend anywhere.
Yeah. My question, I guess, is with everything that's on the docket for us to, with the not the renovation, but the redevelopment and all those different subject matters, will we be needed to make decisions around that time? It appears that I think Mara's department is going to start looking at their information, and will they have that ready?
You know,
So-
I asked the same question my first year, Emerson, and I think there was a justifiable response, which is the staff deserves a break as well.
That's
Oh.
right. Yeah.
And
Because,
And look
yeah,
at the
honestly,
smiles on
I
the.
think
in agreement with the
Mara
staff.
alone deserves a break.
Mara and
Yeah.
Marie are just smiling away like, yes.
Right,
Give us-
because that's the question I had. I just remember the conversation last year, and we just discussed how much more time and work and effort were required on the part of the staff in conducting the business during this COVID. And I would think that that still applies this year. And I was, for the sake of the staff, I would rather,
All right.
Yeah, I'm
Let-
fine with that.
Let's ask the staff and Marie and Mara and others, you all figure out what suits you best. And at our next meeting, make a recommendation to us about what week time that you'd like to take off and stay away from us for a little bit.
Thank you. That's very kind. I will work with Mara and staff. You know, I'm just getting here, so I don't have any big vacations planned, but Mara most certainly deserves one. So we will get back to you.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
just so you know, we'll try to work it out. Some of the council meetings, because of when Plan Commission hits, Plan Commission is, because of the 4th of July, shifts back in July and in August, and I think also in September. So actually, the last meetings of council, there won't be something able to automatically go back to City Council from Plan Commission. So either the last week in July, the last week in August, or the second meeting in all 3 of those months won't impact our applicants, which is a good thing.
All right, you guys figure it out and come back and let us know what works best for you. Thank you.
On behalf of Katie and Dale and Neil, I want to know why we keep talking about Mara on these days off thing.
It's pretty obvious, Neil.
All right, it is, but I still.
Okay, I'm
Well,
willing
I
to
have
say
to give a
Katie
shout out to
agrees.
Jennifer and Katie.
Yes, certainly.
I mean, Mara, I love you. I all props, but I gotta give, shout out.
Well, now it's just me and you, Dale.
Oh, we love you, Neil.
Yeah. All right, you guys figure it out. We're going on. Our next topic is the mayoral endorsements that you have. You got 3 of them from me that I've been asked to sign. The anti-Semitism one is the only one that doesn't require some sort of action. The monarch butterfly one means that we have to come up with some sort of program to preserve the monarch butterflies. And I cannot figure out, and Jen was with me there too, we can't figure out the Wyland Foundation water one. Seems to be much more of a contest among residents to figure out which city can come up with the most water saving proposals. And I think those are all a lot of work. So I don't know what you think. I'd be happy to sign the anti-Semitism one, but you all got all the information, so I need your feedback.
So I wondered, I'm very much in favor of signing the anti-Semitism resolution. The Monarch Pledge, because some of those actions are really kind of symbolic, I wondered if it was something that the Green Space Committee might have some time to take a look at, because it seems to me that some of what are the actions we already do. And so they seemed like the appropriate group to walk through and see if that's a valuable thing for us or not.
I thought that too.
Good.
Do we know if there's a charge for the Monarch one?
I don't think there's a charge for any of them.
Okay. I know in the past, we just kind of finally tabled the idea of being a B city, even though we qualified. There was some fees involved with that, and they decided that fee would go towards a speaker and said be a better use. So the Monarch thing might be a good alternative if there's no cost involved with that, being a pollinator as well.
So if it's okay with the council, let's send the Monarch piece off to the Green Space Committee. And I think that's yours, Pam, right?
Yes.
Yes. If that's okay with council, let's let the Green Space Committee take a look at that. And I don't know whether the Sustainability Commission wants to deal with this Wyland contest or not.
That didn't even look up to date to me. I was confused by that one because the like information in there was all dated from a few years ago. So
It was very confusing. It was hard to even work your way through there.
I
So-
am happy to ask the Sustainability Commission if this is something that they want to work on. I think that's perfectly appropriate. I agree it's confusing
Very
about the
confusing.
contest part of this versus the city commitment part of this. So maybe that's a place to try and sort out for a little while what it actually is and whether it's worth our time as a city.
I've had multiple email messages from them asking me to join, and all of them have to do with the fact that, boy, you could win something. So the sales pitch was constantly, you can win a car, you can win prizes and that sort of thing. So, all right, you can take that to the Sustainability Commission. If it's okay with the rest of you, I'll sign the anti-Semitism one. Is anybody opposed to that? I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
All right.
can I just ask, will we be sharing kind of publicly what that entails? Like just as you sign on, is there kind of I don't know how that works normally when you sign something like that.
We certainly can do that. I think I gave you all the 2-page fact sheet on that, and on there are the principles that you sign on for, and we can certainly share that.
Yeah, I just think it'd be a good idea for people to see kind of what it's actually saying instead of just.
Okay, we can do that. We'll make that available. Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. All right, working our way down through here, Kalia, we're postponing for a future date with a congratulations to the police department on the gold standard of accreditation. We'll move on to the review of the Downtown Master Planning webinar, and that came from Councilwoman Bliss.
Hi. Thank you. I wanted to I feel based on the timing of this webinar and just the fact that I got to attend it, I felt a little bit of a responsibility to report back. And I sent you my notes, but I've also highlighted some other thoughts that have gone along with that, that I just wanted to review quickly. And so you have a copy of the presentation that that was part of the webinar. And then some of these other notes that I just wanted to highlight for you all. And that would begin with master planning and the idea that a master plan could be anything that you want it to be. We could bring it up at any time as needed. It's a good time to test ideas and engage the community. Part of the process that already started with SG Collaborative, although it was driven by them, we did have community engagement in May through July on the redevelopment. We do have a plan from 2006 called the Development Foundation Plan. And that involved at that time a thorough engagement process from the community with focus groups and town hall meetings. And that ended up being a document, a multi-page document that is still available for everyone. And then most recently, Mara and Council updated the comprehensive plan map in 2017. So that essentially aligns where we are today. Another thing that came up was about the funding and the typical breakdowns of funding for such projects. And what I thought was interesting is that in the example they gave, that 42% came from a public-private partnership, so a downtown organization. 35% was from the public sector. There were also philanthropy and then state and federal grants that made the smallest amount of those. Master plans need to be short-term and actionable and ambitious for them to take place. Once it's in place, it's good to establish wins from one stage to the next. As far as community engagement, it's our responsibility to call out what we heard and then how we've responded. Again, SG Collaborative did conduct numerous meetings of town halls. There were 3 big town halls, and then focus groups based on stakeholder interests. I know I attended the business owners and the North Webster neighborhood groups. Now that we are close to having the data from development strategies, I do think it's time that we start considering reaching out. And then as things are opening up, it's our responsibility to reach out with some of the information and our thoughts. Also in relationship to the redevelopment plan, it's a good part of it is that it's infrastructure, meaning, you know, parts that we do not see. So their proposal covers all those areas. And most importantly, those would be areas like stormwater and sanitation, power, communications, and those are vital resources for businesses and residents alike. I also included in the packet a note that coincided with the Green Space Advisory Commission with 2 entities that have community planning tools in relation to conservation. And they would like to, at some point, kind of similar to the HPC, have a chance to sit at the table with council and make sure that the concepts align between us and the commission. The main point of that meeting was that while there's an outline of lots of conservation tools, it's hard for any community to meet absolutely every single criteria. But if we can do our best to meet what we feel is best for our community, then we are in a win situation. And so that's also just that set of notes that I provided was the entire set of notes, and the only reason things are highlighted in red are what I already reported back to you all. So that's it. I'm just thankful that I had the opportunity to attend, and I'm thankful that you all for your time and attention this evening.
Thank you, Pam. Does anybody have a question or a comment for Pam? Thank you for providing us all that good information. There's a lot here to absorb, and we all appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, our next item is the discussion of the Proposition 1 use tax, and I'm happy to go there. Marie, I'm wondering if that's not better after the budget update, because then we'd have a better sense of whether we need that money or not, what we could use that money for. I'm going to throw that over back to you.
Well, you read my mind, Mayor. I was actually thinking after going through the budget presentation again, it probably would be a better discussion after. So if you'd like, I'll go ahead. Unless
let's reverse that then. It makes better sense to me.
Excellent. Well, let me slide my presentation over. And share my screen. Sorry about that.
There we go.
Okay, hopefully you can see my presentation. Okay. And I'm going to move the cameras so it doesn't cut my slide off, so it may not feel like I'm looking at you anymore. We'll see, but anyhow. So this is about 9 slides. I welcome all the discussion. I know time is limited, but I really would appreciate any questions or comments because this is an interesting budget year just in terms of COVID and the various impacts of what has occurred in the current fiscal year 21 and what we're anticipating for 22. So just a real brief history here so you could see the revenue and expenditure history. And actually, before I get started, I need to give a big shout out to Marlene. She's been really terrific in helping with this, so I wanted to share that. So we've got FY 18 actuals, 19 and 20 actuals. And you can see that our revenues are all around 16 million for each year. FY 20 though was significantly lower. It's about $700,000 lower. Our expenditures in FY 18 also were a little over about 16.5 million, and there was a negative of about 300,000. I'm unsure of what occurred there, but we did have that deficit. FY 19 was a little better in that we ended the year with about $100,000 in a surplus. FY 20, it was we did have 16 million budgeted for revenues, and then our expenditures were right around 17 million. This is the start of COVID. So unfortunately, there was about an $860,000 deficit. There's a lot of small revenues that didn't come in. They all add up. But the major things were that the pool didn't open in May and other parks and recreation fees didn't occur. And then municipal fines decreased as well. Are there any questions on that? So what you see here, FY 21 and 22 revenues and expenditures with the story of where are we at now. So the FY 21 amended budget, revenues were anticipated to come in a little above 19 million, and expenditures were also, oh, there's my timed lights. Expenditures were also anticipated to come in a little bit around 19 million. Net difference of about 330,000 in terms of a surplus. What has actually occurred and where we're at, what you see highlighted in yellow as of last Friday, the 16th, is that our revenues were 13.2 million and our expenditures were 13.5 million. So a negative net difference of $335,000. I think it's really important to understand how the CARES money has impacted this. The CARES money has been a blessing for communities across the nation. So that almost $6 million, if we back that out, our revenues are at, as of last Friday, about 11.6 million. Our expenditures 13.5 million with a net difference of almost $2 million. So we are still anticipating quite a bit of revenues coming in through the end of the year, which that might seem overly ambitious, but we have several large revenues that come towards the very end of the year, including real estate taxes, property taxes, and sales taxes. So we are still estimating that we'll get about 17.7 in revenues, but our expenditures are still around 18 million, leaving a net negative difference of about $270,000. I do want to point out that the expenditures, while still higher, are still significantly lower than what's in the amended budget. Department directors have been working very hard in their departments to make sure that expenditures are kept at a minimum while maintaining services. Estimated FY 21 revenue shortfalls, I think this is important to know as well, because some of those will rebound over time, but not all. Utility taxes, that's one that most likely will rebound. We're anticipating a negative $189,000. Parks and recreation, negative $800,000. Over time, that will rebound as well. How quickly, I cannot tell you, but it will. Fines, though, is one that I think we need to consider for future budgets, just because the nature of policing, courts, Senate Bill 5, many things that have changed. So parking fines are down 26,000, and municipal court is a negative 379,000, and it's estimated that we'll end fiscal year 21 with those totaled at a negative $405,000. So those are revenues in that line in particular that most likely will not improve and have in fact been declining over the last couple of years. Any questions there?
Marie, the previous slide was the general fund, correct? Because it had revenues of 16 million.
These are all general fund. That is where the primary.
This is the general fund. Okay, and then if we flip to the next slide that you're on, is that still the general fund, or does that include all funds?
This is everything I'm showing you this evening is general fund. Thank you for asking that.
Okay.
This is our general fund. And I am going to stand up so my lights come back on. So pardon me just a second. I feel like I'm sitting in the dark for you. Thank you. Any other questions about that?
You know, with the decrease in fines from the municipal courts, does that mean our prosecutor and judge have less work to do?
It doesn't, and that is a fair question. They have quite a backlog, and it's going to be interesting to see how that is handled due to cases not being in person. We actually have a little bit of an increase in terms of expenditures forecasted for them in FY22. A part-time person to help with court. They're talking about going to 2 nights a week to try to catch up. So that's a little bit of an unknown. We hopefully will bring in a little bit more revenue, but just because they're in court doesn't mean they'll be assessing fines.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So again, this is general fund. And I highlighted or I bolded and underlined that these aren't even recommendations at this point. This is a draft. And I say that for you as well as for our viewers. I just kind of want to give a picture of where we're at and then to hear the discussion from council and to be able to receive guidance. So again, at this point, I'm not bringing you forth with recommendations, which I certainly will. I just want to show you the snapshot in time of where we were as of last Friday. So when we look at this, I just went through the FY21 amended budget and where we're at, and then of course where we actually are, and thankfully with the CARES funding helping with those revenues there in our general fund. And then I've shared the estimates. So the FY22 draft, where we're at, we are estimating $17.1 million in revenues. We're also estimating $19.5 million in expenditures. Now, nobody ever wants to bring forth a budget where there's a huge negative. So what I wanted to do was share a little bit about why that is. And to be clear, there's still certainly some thinning and trimming that can be done in the expenditures, but there's a lot of fixed cost that we don't have a lot of opportunity to influence. And government, large and far, is a service organization, which means your expenses are in your people. That's where the expenses are. And so what I wanted to share about that $2.4 million deficit, should this be the budget, which it's not, again, it's early, is that healthcare costs have increased by 4.5%. That is not an incredibly high increase when we look at increases that have happened across the jurisdiction. That's really right in the middle. We've seen some municipalities with maybe 3% increases, and we've seen some municipalities with 6.5% to 7%. So we're right in the middle there, but it still hurts. It's quite a bit of an increase. Professional services, these are various contracts that different departments engage in within the year. That is an area we can influence. Right now it's increased by $130,000, and I just wanted to share some of what that is. We've got placeholders for the compensation and classification recommendations. As you all know, we're currently out for RFP to be able to have some assistance with our compensation and classification. It's typical for municipalities to do this every few years. This will be Webster Grove's first one. The $30,000 is to be able to implement recommendations. That doesn't have to occur. We could table those recommendations for future years. And again, we have no idea what the recommendations will even come in at. So it really is just meant to be a placeholder. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Should we embark on a second year of a contract or try to, if we want to engage the community in a larger rollout of a DEI effort, that $40,000 again is a placeholder because that's typically what like a second year of a contract might cost. But again, it's just an estimate. So I wanted to share some of those things. Where the bulk of that negative number comes into play, again, service organization, and we're paying for our people. So it's the annual employee increase of 2%, but the big hit is with the fire and police step increases. And so those were enacted several fiscal years ago. The first increase was for fire, and it was, so the increase from 2019 to 2020 with the 2% annual increase and the first year of the fire steps increased the budget about $364,000. So an increase from 2020 to 2021 was $503,000, basically $504,000. That include the annual 2% for staff and then the first year of the police steps. This year, if approved by council moving forward, considering the budget, it will be the first year that we have both the police and fire steps together. So that is a large cost increase. So it's the 2% for other staff and police and fire being together, along with anticipated retirements of 3 employees that have service from 20 to 30 years. And so we're budgeting for those as well. So that totals up to about equally $1.26 million. So I just wanted to share that with you. David, you look like you have a question.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to ask is, in the 2022 budget does not include any additional funds that may be received from the federal government in regards to this most recent stimulus.
It does not.
All right. So that will at least be able to assist us, just like the CARES Act assisted us in 21. But I guess I'm a little bit concerned in the regards to, obviously we were well aware, and this predates you, Marie, but we were well aware of these step ups. And it appears that even if we had accounted for those step ups, we would still be in the hole somewhere in 2022. So it seems it's a little worrisome to me, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, is that it doesn't seem like we necessarily accounted for these step ups in a fashion that would have ensured a balanced budget in 2022.
So David, that's a really good observation, and that is my concern as well. I will tell you, I'm used to working off of a 10-year proposed fiscal budget. I don't know if there's anything magic about 10 years, but what I would like to see implemented, is at least a forecasted 5-year budget, because even with Prop P, if we were to use some more of those funds from salary, eventually it's going to be upside down. It does not keep pace with what we're seeing in fire and police salaries, and just general insurance, healthcare cost increases, that sort of thing. So you're spot on in terms of we would have been upside down anyway.
So I'd just like to hear, and not right now, because I think it probably requires some more preparation, but sort of game out that Prop P, how that factors into this. Because I know at the beginning we had this, when we first received Prop P funds, we had a little bit of this conversation, but we obviously need to revisit it in a way that helps us understand how that's going to work for these things. Because I agree with David, it's disconcerting.
Excellent. So my plan, and we're not going to be able to do the a 5-year planned out proposed budget, but you will see one for next year. But we can do that, and that's part of what I wanted to ask your guidance on in terms of this presentation. So if there's no more questions on this slide, I'll go to the next one. Okay. So what you see here are other fund balances and comparisons of fiscal years. So the general fund is on top, which is what we've been talking about. But there's also the capital fund, the park improvement fund, street improvements, and public safety sales fund. So one of the questions that I'm going to ask you at the end, so I might as well ask it now and have you start thinking about it, is to learn your comfort level with shifting more of these funds and paying for whether it's park projects, stormwater, because some of those still, not a large percentage, but salaries, some things like that still come out of the general fund. So we do have an opportunity with Prop P, for example, to use more of those funds. So food for thought, which certainly won't solve the problem, but it does assist.
So Marie, all the balances that, to go back, the balance that we see now can be transferred to the general fund? Capital and park improvement, street improvement. It's just those large balances they carry every year, they can be decreased?
They can be decreased. I mean, the projects have to fit the intended voter purpose clearly. But yes, there are some things that could certainly, salaries for public safety, that's one that certainly is a fitting transfer should we do that. And we have done salary transfers that in the past years, that's something that has been done and the council has approved.
Well, let's look at park improvements. So if some of the recommended projects can be done, just take it out of their overall fund balance, and that'll decrease the amount of budget. I guess it would need. Well, it'll go into the budget, but they'll use money that's already there.
That is correct.
Okay.
As long as it fits, again, I know you're indicating it would, but for our listeners, as long as it fit what the intended purpose of those funds were, there's certainly some leeway. So this gets to what Councilman Franklin was saying. So we are scheduled to get or slated to get 4.2 million in recovery funds. Those were not built into the numbers that I showed you with the general fund. Part of that is that we have an anticipated date of when we will get them, but there's nothing that's come in terms of writing. There's also not information in terms of how many payments we will receive. We're anticipating it will be split out amongst at least 2 payments, but we're not real sure yet. But we will receive the $4+ million funds, which is terrific because that really helps shore up the general fund, which is fully what it's intended to do. You know, showing the negative 2.5, that is not poor budgeting. It's not, you know, anything nefarious on the part of whether directors or how this has been done before. This is a matter of revenues have been impacted, and we are no different than other cities across the nation in terms of revenues being impacted. And so the recovery funds, so President Biden, as you all know, signed these into law. The 1.9 trillion economic stimulus package is meant to help jurisdictions and other governmental entities, as well as schools and other industries. However, as I said, we'll be getting the 4.2 million. States should receive the funds no later than May 10th, and the municipalities are supposed to receive the funds by June 9th. As I understand it, ours will of course be distributed by the county. So that's what I'm not sure on yet, is when we will receive those funds, how they will be distributed. And again, will it be 2 payments? Will it be 4 payments? So once we receive more of that information, we can also start plugging some of that into the budget. The deadline to spend all 4.2 million is December 31st, 2024. I think that's good news because it gives time for these conversations and for purposeful planning from council to be able to really use these dollars as they're intended to do.
Marie, you brought up a good point that I think it would be helpful. I don't know if you have it tonight, but for the public to see would be the revenue difference between 1920 and then now 21. That way they could see that where the revenue is shortfall or why it was shortfall. Obviously taxes are taxes, but like when it comes to sales tax, stuff like that, I think that I assume that's what you're referring to in regards to the revenue shortfalls.
Yes, and we can certainly do that. Thank you, taking notes. Just more information on the American Rescue funding, and I know Councilwoman Arnold was going to share some information, so I'll be brief in this. Cities can use it for quite a few things. The number one is recovery or revenue replacement. It's what most cities are using it for. Replenishing reserves used to offset those revenue declines during the pandemic, of course. We can also cover operating deficits covered by COVID-19, but those should be considered temporary, which they certainly are. So we are on the right track with the conversations we're having. And then they can also be used for infrastructure, which is highly encouraged because those are largely one-time costs that help communities in many ways for years moving forward. And then there are, of course, prohibitions on how the funding can be used. And the two that are there are the primary prohibitions. And of course, we haven't discussed using them for any of those items. So just a couple of capital improvement ideas for food for thought. These do not impact the general fund, but this is a way to use them. I'm certain that there will be some discussions on how the rescue funds would best benefit community as well as we look at the funds in a holistic manner. So certainly revenue replacement is a conversation to continue having, and how much of the 4.2 million we would use for revenue replacement. But there's also infrastructure needs, which is a primary use for the funds. There's the Elm at Kirkham Culvert, which you will see coming up in the budget presentations and are probably very well already aware of. It's estimated to cost $1.2 million. We do not have that in the stormwater sales tax fund, which was not in the funds that I presented tonight. But it's estimated that at the end of the fiscal year, so this fiscal year, so June 30, it's estimated that the stormwater fund balance is going to be $608,000. So this could be something that would be fitting for the rescue funding. And then there's the Big Bend Crossroads improvement that Mara is going to be sharing more on at a later date. And then another thing that communities are doing, and we've talked about in terms of our buildings, City Hall, the Service Center, and Parks and Recreation, but is having Wi-Fi. As you all know, public and employee connectivity is mission critical. But even more than that, it's largely considered a public amenity. You know, it's rare that you go to any store without having a Wi-Fi network pop up. We did a little bit of costing of that to do city buildings and to have Wi-Fi as both an public amenity and employee amenity. It'd be about $40,000 annually. We did not get prices on if we were to do a couple of the larger, more frequented parks, but that also is just food for thought. And the sky is the limit in terms of creativity. Cities are doing all kinds of creative things. So if there are areas that council's interested in learning more about for recovery funds, if you want to share those with me either now or later, I'm happy to do some legwork and research and bring that information back. And then just in terms of, I'd like to see any additional or hear about any additional detail that you would like to see in the budget. May 11th is coming up quickly. And so if there's any information that I can get you, I am more than happy to do that. And then of course, to gauge council's comfort level with fund balance, using fund balances from the others in an appropriate manner, of course.
You know, I don't know exactly what the discussions have been, but obviously prior to you arriving, Marie, like I tried to advocate for the dissemination of council meetings and to the public, that, you know, for the people that couldn't attend and everything like that. And now I think that this pandemic has demonstrated that we need to more than ever have a way of virtual attendance. Will our current mechanism that we currently have provide for that as we go forward and meeting in person, and also eventually once this pandemic passes for community members to not only attend council at City Hall, but also to attend and live stream or see City Council virtually?
Absolutely. It's my intention that we continue with the Zoom meetings. I know Katie's been working with Steve Bader, the IT director, IT manager, on making sure that we are equipped, upgrading some of the equipment that's currently in council chambers so that we can continue providing that service to the public.
So would that mean that like all of us are sitting in front of our laptops or our iPads still? And the public, so like we're this, but we're in the same room?
So there's actually a meeting on Thursday where we'll have more information about that. Our vendors are going to be on site looking at that. There's a couple of different options where we could just have very large television screens, for instance, on the sides, and some cameras placed across chambers. And so we wouldn't have to have the individual iPads. You certainly could to look at your materials still, but that wouldn't be the conduit with the public.
Gotcha.
So that we could screen it that way. So there's several options that we're looking at.
Awesome, thank you.
Didn't we approve something to get technology in the council chambers for streaming, $25,000 or $30,000 some time ago?
Yes, and that is part of what is occurring on Thursday, and Katie had been doing some other work. It also was some of the equipment. So I will have more information on that for you, hopefully on Friday.
Great.
Emerson, I think that was all pre-COVID too.
Yeah, it was pre-COVID, but I do remember we did talk about it and approve something.
So I do want to mention, Katie sent to you an article from the National League of Cities that essentially summarized this webinar that I attended last week about the American Rescue Plan funds and really how we might think about this. And I want to be sure that we have a framework for thinking about this rather than just a laundry list of let's put that on the list and not that on the list. Because one of the things that they really suggested is that we need to do a needs assessment, and we need to engage some stakeholders in that. What is it that the community needs from us with some of this money? Clearly, one of the priorities of the act itself was to prioritize fiscal stability among local governments. So it makes sense to me for us as government to use a big chunk of these funds, but I also think it makes sense for us to spend some time with our community figuring out what it is, how the pandemic has affected them and what that means for how we use the funds. And so I know we're short on time, so I'm just going to encourage you all to take a look at it. They summarized it in a very brief article, so it won't take a lot of your time, but I think it is a useful way to think about how we move forward on this.
Or that's a good point. It's been a long time since we've done a town hall, maybe, and it doesn't have to be in person, but maybe we do a town hall on these these funds. And that maybe begin the process of figuring out exactly what we spend them on.
Yeah, if we're going to do that, though, I want to make sure that and I agree, and you know me, I'll show up at a town hall anywhere that I want to do them. But I do think we need to be careful about the framework and what are the questions we're asking and you know, what do we think we want and need during that process. I'm not suggesting that we steer it necessarily, but I also just don't want to open it up as a free-for-all because I'm not sure where that'll get us.
I think the framework is definitely necessary, but I want to make sure that we've been getting not requests, but we've been asked to pay attention to certain industries so far, you know, small businesses, restaurant associations and things. And I'd like to take into account those requests and be able to move those forward, even if we have a town hall, so that we've got kind of a more holistic view of what's going on rather than just focusing on what happens at this town hall or whatever else we do.
And Pam, that reminds me of another point that's made. We have to remember that our section of the law that gives us this particular amount of money is one small section of the thing. There's a whole restaurant revitalization fund now. There's rental assistance. And so one of the things they said in this webinar as well is be careful not to be repetitive from other available funding sources. And so I think probably we all are going to have to do some education for ourselves about what's available so we can make some of those decisions in a good way. Because I think you're right. We have heard from a lot of people already.
The other thing I want to add is that there has been a request both from the county and from the state to try to partner up, particularly where there are infrastructure needs. For example, the corner of Big Bend and Elm is a county road, and you can see that perhaps something there might be a project that the county and the city could use. But that request has been made, and I think we should take advantage of that too. All right, anything else? Because if not, this doesn't get us to the Proposition 1 use tax discussion. We have about 3 minutes left for that. Maybe we could think a little bit about whether or not we want to move forward on that in August. And Marie, perhaps this should be a good discussion for our May meeting, our first May meeting.
Yes.
Are you hoping that you get something from the council tonight?
I would certainly like to know where the council's thinking, and I will just be really brief that with the addition of Jen Starkey and with her community relations that we will be, and quite frankly, with vaccines rolling out and people returning to in-person meetings, both she and I would be better posed to be in person at community meetings to share factual education about Prop 1 and the uses. So I would feel confident if council were willing to go forward. When is a different subject, but I think we would just be much better posed to be able to do this. And I would also share that considering the revenue picture, I think there are many reasons to move forward with Prop 1. So I would just share that.
And I can also share that if the bill passes, that all elections for everyone will now be in November. Our last and best shot at this will be August. So
do we know when we're expecting a decision at the state level though on the Wayfair legislation?
That'll probably not come until May the 14th, the last day of the state legislature.
Yeah.
We'll know unless something happens ahead of time. So much, Sarah, gets done in those last 2 or 3 days of the state session. So
I just wonder if that might better guide our decision. Seems
Well,
like
and I do think we have to make a decision about August by the end of May because we have to have the ballot
Yes.
language over there.
yeah, we do.
And I think the conversations that we need to have is what went well, what didn't went well, what can we do better next time? Just to hopefully put more educational material out there, what the prop is all about. Because there was a lot of bad information out there.
Okay, so let's put this in the May, first meeting of May work session, and we'll make a decision at that point about whether or not we decide to put this on the August ballot. We can have that discussion. Okay?
Thank you, will do. I'll also work on a framework for town halls. Those are easy enough to work on and share some information back with you all. And as you consider the budget and we think about how much of the recovery funds would be needed for revenue replacement, that would also share how much is left over for these types of community things, which I would suggest should be considered separate from the budget. That's in terms of how the funds are meant to be used.
Right, finally, let's do their appointments to boards and commissions. And Katie, can you help me out, since I think, wait a minute, I think I can do this real quick, because we have 2 vacancies for the Historic Preservation Commission. We have Dee Dee Dooley,
Just
who,
one vacancy.
pardon me?
There's just one vacancy.
One vacancy, but we have 2 people,
Yes.
Dee Dee Dooley and Sarah Marlar. And at the last work session, we were inclined to appoint Ms. Dooley. Are we on that pathway? Yes, everybody? Okay, so we will appoint Dee Dee Dooley. For the Future Business Development Commission, we have CC Bartels, who would like to apply, and we could just simply tell her that she will be the next appointee to the BDC. Is that okay with everyone? Yes? Okay, and Mr. Scavato, is he an active member of the BDC? Who's been the Laura, is he an active member of the BDC?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Yeah, I would support his reappointment. I guess that's the question
Okay,
you're asking.
that's what, yeah, the question is whether, sometimes we don't know whether people are or not. So he would like to be reappointed, and he's been active, and would everyone support that? Yes? Okay, good enough. All right, I think that's it for the boards and commissions, and we can take a quick 2-minute break and get into the regular meeting shortly, okay? Does anybody need a break? Yes, I'm here seeing some folks, so yeah. Mhm. All right, just give me, it's 7:32, take about 3 or 4 minutes and we'll be right back. Okay, do we have everyone here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Katie is there. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the city council meeting to order and welcome all of you here. We have quite a few members of the public joining us tonight on Zoom, and we welcome all of you to this meeting. Glad that you're here tonight. And we ask that if you've sent in a public comment to be entered into the record, either for one of the public hearings or for remarks of visitors. If you did that before 4 o'clock today, then we will read that into the minutes for the meeting. If not, when the time comes for either public hearing comments or remarks of visitors, you can raise your hand on the Zoom and you will be recognized. And we ask people to keep their comments to 3 minutes, and we'll start with the roll call. Ms. Kate.
Yes, Mayor. Mayor Welsh,
Here.
Councilmember Arnold,
Here.
Councilmember Bliss,
Here.
Councilmember Franklin,
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Alexander,
Here.
Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
Right. The first agenda item tonight is a reopening of a public hearing that was continued from April the 6th. And this public hearing is for zoning code text amendments to family residential. And for some reason, Neil, I end up reading these. Proposed amendments include clarifications to the use and dimensional regulations regarding single-family attached dwellings and 2-family dwellings in the A4 7,500 square foot residence district in sections 53.070 and .100, and amended definitions related to those uses in section 53.020. So Mara, if you have something that you want to add to this, I guess we'll start with you.
I have nothing to add this evening. I have the PowerPoint available if you need me to put any slides up. We did receive some additional comments, and I know those will probably be read into the record, but I did not have anything specific, and I had not received any requests to research anything or bring anything forward.
Mara, I was wondering, can you show us the PowerPoint slides where we demonstrate or you demonstrate the breadth of this ordinance, for instance, where it will this will expand to, so to speak, where we're changing zoning?
So one quick thing, which I think people keep saying, using the terminology changing zoning. We are not changing the zoning.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's hard for, it's a misnomer. We're not rezoning the property. And so I've been trying to, when I do get to speak with residents, to explain that. But yes, I can show you, I'm going to jump to the map. So this is all of our A4 7,500 square foot is in the dark yellow. However, because of the restrictions that we're putting in, that it has to meet, and I say the restrictions we're putting in, those restrictions have been in the code since 1956. There were always restrictions in the code that said in order to have the 2-family, you still had to have a minimum 7,500 and you still had to meet the minimum for the zoning code. So once you take that area, and this was the map that identified there was a second restriction in there, and that's the restriction we're removing that limited it to almost no lots within the city at all. But once you take the map, this map. So on this map, this was simply taking one of those factors and already taking out all the lots that according to St. Louis County were less than 7,500 square feet. And all of those are identified in orange. However, all of those green ones, there isn't a very easy way, like county doesn't have a very easy way to just say, oh, this group is only 50 feet wide. This would also not apply to 50-foot wide lots. So there are quite a few lots still within that green that could probably be cut down in half. In addition, there could be some lots where, again, there's someone thought they had a double wide lot with 100 feet. And they might put a two-family, like 2 townhouses, each having 50 feet, because they can't put a two-family and they can't split it into 2 lots and do two families.
Okay.
Does that help explain?
Absolutely. So, I mean, effectively, I mean, what's in the green minus some will be where 2-family dwellings will be permitted going forward if this were to pass.
That is correct. And
So,
I'll clarify, which I've said this a few times. 2-family is already permitted in A4. We're not adding it in as something new. We're just changing some of the restrictions that limited it within the A4.
yeah, and I mean, just as we go back to 1950, 2-family dwellings were technically permitted, but then they kept putting restrictions on it, so it effectively abolished the 2-family dwellings. So like my big thing here is I mean, going back to 1950, we do have a string of what built Webster Groves over the past 60 years, which is single-family residences. And now this is a rather large shift to a large portion of Webster Groves pretty quickly. And I'm not saying that obviously 2-family dwellings are going to go up in all these areas overnight, but I do think I question whether it would be better to start with an even smaller area to study and learn the impacts it has on our community and also on everything else that both positive and negative. In other words, rather than going so big so quickly, maybe we start smaller and expand, because once you expand, it's a lot harder to go back.
So this actually to us was not going big. Most other cities around the country that are going big are abolishing their single family altogether and allowing 2-family, multifamily, and all kinds of other uses. They're just abolishing it completely. Staff felt that that was too great for us with the type of infrastructure we had. So starting with this, because it was already in the code, was the small bite. And also remembering, some of you will probably remember when we were talking about the short-term rentals, there was a lot of conversation with the council members of, well, how are we going to know? Should we restrict it to a certain number per block? What were our concerns as we were opening up the idea of people being able to do short-term rentals? With all of that discussion, we have 5. So, this isn't, we're not going to have a huge influx of everyone tearing down every house. We're also there. It's not that the houses that are there can just be immediately transformed to become 2 families. This is going to be a very, very slow process, if that. And we would be able to see, similar to the code changes we made in 2017. We had 3 years to see our implications, kind of see what was happening with them, and had the ability to make some additional changes. So that's just staff's thought.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate it. I think what's most daunting to me right now is the fact that, and this is given, and I'm making a lot of assumptions here, but it just seems like this will be permitted in a large swath of Webster Groves where we don't have any data internally, so to speak, of the negative or positive consequences that this could have on the community. Obviously, we can go outside and look at data in communities that are similar to Webster Groves and determine what are the negative and positive consequences in those communities. But what I'm advocating for is I'm perfectly fine with us expanding this and looking at new options. I just question if we're going too broad too quickly. And despite what your comments are, Mara, I appreciate those. It just seems like this is a large swath of Webster Groves without having any internal data to demonstrate one way or the other the consequences.
What are we thinking the negative consequences are going to be is my question. Because this is going to be a very gradual thing. And I think in terms of thinking about differences, there's no incentive for a developer to come in and tear down a $300,000 house and build a duplex. That's not a financial calculation.
But there is an incentive to tear down our affordable housing right now that is at the 150 to 180 and build 2 places or a 2-family dwelling, rent them out or sell them both, right?
And that's my question to you, Mara, is about ownership. and I think maybe that might help people understand this. If I'm a developer and I build a duplex, can each of those units be separately owned by someone so that it's not just rental housing, but it's an opportunity for someone to have housing that they actually own? Can we do that?
You can't require it. We can't require anyone to not rent out their own home. But yes, we can, a developer can sell both of them separately and do them as condos. So if you sell them separately, it's just a different type of plat. And so it's a plat that's administratively approved by staff. So it doesn't have to go through any hoops through council or go through any other meetings. But yes, someone can take those two and are able to make them using a condo plat that people can own each of those units separately.
So it's not like owning it myself as a single family residence. I have to go through a condo?
No. When we say a condo plat means that you own, like after the house is built with condominiums, after the structure is built, you get a legal description for the part that you own. So usually, like if you both share the yard, or you could even condo it out into two and include some of the yard. But no, it's not you don't have to have a condominium association or anything like that. It's just the terminology of how you do a condo plat versus a plat for land.
So it is an opportunity for someone to own a home.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
I have
Mary, you could also be owner occupied, so you could build it, you could live in half of it and decide to rent out the other half.
Right.
Obviously, ownership would still be there, or it could be owned by the developer still.
And I thought that was one of the main attractions, because we do have a demand by a demand for smaller homes and lesser yard maintenance and what have you. And so if you look at the difference between typically a condo, as Mara explained, is you own walls in or studs in, whereas townhouses, I thought you also gave us an example previously where the lot could actually be split down the middle. There's a party wall, and in a townhouse situation, then you could have individual owners for each one of those units, and they own the unit and they own the land. So I thought that what this was also doing was creating opportunity for homeowners that do want the smaller homes and they do want less actual yard maintenance, but they want the benefits of ownership. So again, this is not an opportunity to just create a bunch of rental houses. That's not, this creates a great opportunity for ownership that really is right now there's not a big opportunity from this perspective in Webster for ownership.
I agree. I think that I question, and there's no doubt that I agree that we definitely need, for instance, smaller residences in order for people who want to have smaller yards, smaller property, smaller square footage to purchase. I question, is it really going to change the dynamic so much? Because if these are new buildings, new construction, isn't the cost still going to be possibly unobtainable to individuals who might not have be at a socioeconomic class where Webster Groves is currently requiring? In other words, does this really solve the socioeconomic question that we currently have in Webster Groves?
I think, David, in thinking about that, I think this doesn't solve so let's say, we do have a segment of housing stock that you can get for under $150,000. It's not very big. This isn't going to solve anything for people like that. But what a lot of people worry about disappearing is the $200,000 to $300,000 home that we seem to have less of over time. And that's where the duplexes might be, in my estimation, just given the reading I've done. We've got to have other strategies to preserve those in the 150 under $200,000 range. This isn't going to solve that, no. But this also can't be the only thing we do, right? It's just one of several things we should be working on.
So you see this more for preserving, not preserving, but for building up that middle road house, so to speak, or cost of a middle road house, not the cheapest end here in Webster Groves, not the most expensive, but somewhere in the middle.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We have to remember that this was our goal that we set 3 years ago, or 18, 19, was to create a more diverse housing stock. And this would do that. And like Laura said, and Mara has presented to us, there's many ways to do that. Mara, I had just a couple questions. First of all, do you have an idea of how many duplexes have been converted to single family homes? So gone the opposite way in the last few years? I know that has occurred in some of those neighborhoods where they exist. And then second, did this concern about too much, too fast, as far as the number of lots in Webster, did that come up in Plan Commission?
So I'll start with I think I only know of one that has gone from a duplex to a single. I know of two that had been duplexes, sort of had been operating as a single, that have asked to go back to duplexes in the last few years. So I've had a few of those, and I had one that I don't think we completely realized. I mean, it was in the books as a duplex, but no one had been in a while because they hadn't had a change of tenant. But we did have a duplex that we weren't completely aware of that was already on the books as a duplex going back, I don't know, 15, 20 years. So those are the only ones that I can think of. And then I don't remember Plan Commission specifically thinking that this was too much too fast. In fact, some of the questions were related to why weren't we also doing it in the A1, the A2, and the A3? Like, why weren't we doing it citywide? And that's where staff said, you know what, I kept using the reference of this is the low hanging fruit, because it was already in the A4 code that the 2-family was a permitted use. It was the easier one that we weren't changing the zoning. We weren't adding a new use in. So from that standpoint, we were trying to address something that was already in the code and making some amendments to that existing part of the code.
So those two homes where they requested to go back to duplex, were they able to do that?
Yes, because they were in those couple little tiny red areas on the map.
Okay.
I just want to clear, like, the A4 absolutely from a plain language permitted duplexes or 2-family housing, but from the spirit of our ordinance as taken as a whole, they did not. They completely restricted it.
Yes, and if you look at the history of planning, and it's not a great history, and we are working very hard to address that. There's currently an article I can share with you from, I think it's the city of Louisville, that was researching the fact that the planner who created, I mean, I'm a planner, but the planner who created our zoning codes made a lot of very specific changes to exclude members of a community from being able to move to 2 areas. So by exclusively making it single family only, but saying that it would potentially be able to have 2-family, it was creating very specific exclusions.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's no doubt that the not only was the intent, but the resulting outcome exclusionary. I don't disagree with that. I think the question that I'm trying to raise is it inherently bad for a community to want to be single family residences?
Again, I would say that the change in what we are researching and learning as planners on the state, regional, national level is that, and I shared it in the packets, is that the changes to become more inclusive in our zoning and to make those changes to not be exclusively single family, to give that flexibility. And it's a goal that the American Planning Association has taken on with some of the things that we do in our training, to look to the future. And the future in many cities has been to remove exclusive single family zoning from their codes.
And that includes, and just so you say cities, does that include suburban areas like Webster Groves, or just major metropolitan areas like the city of St. Louis?
So the larger cities are the ones that have taken on completely removing it. Like single family zoning is gone completely, because they have the infrastructure to handle it. The smaller communities have been taken smaller steps similar to what we're doing, because their infrastructure can't handle our infrastructure can't handle what like Seattle is doing or Minneapolis is doing, where it's absolutely every lot can be a multifamily building. We can't handle that. Our infrastructure can't. But by looking at, the size of the homes that we have today, by still limiting the sizes to, if you have a 2-family, it's going to be similar in massing to what the single family are today. And then looking at making sure we have enough parking, that helps handle some of our infrastructure issues. And again, I don't see a mass demolition of entire blocks with all the other restrictions we put in the code. So this will be a little bit here and there, piecemeal, a lot here, a lot there. And I think we'd be able to see in the next year or two, how many are we going to get?
Mara, there are a couple of duplexes in town that maybe people who have kind of an image in their head of what this is should take a look at where we have a few, which are over by Webster University, correct? There are a couple there that are lovely brick buildings that are 2-family duplexes, and that the image of that might help folks who are in such opposition.
So the map with some of those blocks is available on the PowerPoint.
Good. And that we might ask people to just go take a look there. So any other questions? Katie and Jen, do we have any comments for this particular public hearing that need to be read, or any hands up?
Yes, Mayor, we do have some that need to be read, and we'll check for hands up at the end.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Please note, before I start reading the remarks, some of these public hearing comments that I'll be reading into the record related to Bill 9145 may also apply to the public hearing related to Bill 9146, but they will only be read once at this time. All right. So our first comment is from Alexandra Gioso, and that's from the 13th of April. All righty. As a resident of Webster Groves for 13 years, I would like to voice my disapproval of the proposal to allow duplex housing in the A4 district. I have not seen any explanation or plan as to how duplexes would integrate into the community. To encourage missing middle housing, I would look more at promoting smaller house and cottage builds, carriage houses and ADUs, and regulating new house sizes on lots of demolished smaller homes. When my family moved to Webster, it was for the small town appeal of it. Old growth trees, single family homes, a small yet active downtown, and easy access to the city. In developing a more naturally income diverse community, we need to think about how the entire neighborhood is designed instead of simply allowing multifamily housing to exist. Given factors like school capacity and increased traffic and street parking, there is most likely a specific percentage of multifamily homes the area can support. There's also the question of who really wants a duplex built next to them. Odds are people will say it is fine as long as it isn't built next door. Okay, then where? What will these duplexes look like, and how will they fit into the overall look of the neighborhood? Will on-site parking be required so more cars aren't lining the already crowded streets? Will there be a full block of just duplexes like you see in St. Louis City? Webster Groves is a gem in the St. Louis area. It seems your concerns are that Webster is reaching an unsustainable level where houses are too big and priced too high, therefore stagnating the city's growth, diversity, and success. In thinking about Victor Dober's approach to creating great spaces and designing neighborhoods, I feel the current design for the Old Webster redevelopment should be reassessed in how you're creating this place. A multitude of 7-story buildings is not the way to go with redevelopment. It doesn't take into consideration the multi-style housing approach nor the character of the current downtown area. Feels more like the many times failed forced lower income housing than it does the inventive placemaking approach to a building a neighborhood. This is why I signed a petition against building the redevelopment project as it's currently designed. All right. Our next is from Dave Buck. It was received on April the 18th. To our mayor, city council, and city staff, just please follow me on this. Here's how the proven successful leadership model called leadership by values works. First, determine the core values and guiding principles of the organization, then do everything you can to maximize them. And if you do, decision-making is clear, automatic, and unquestionable. City council is already on record that diversity, equity, and inclusion are important core values for the community. From this resident's point of view, DEI has a much broader application than just racially. We need to strive to maximize diversity, equity, and inclusion in all of its forms. And to me, to accept 2-family residential in our community is one of these forms and requires us as a community to lead, stand up, and speak up for greater human diversity, equity, and inclusion that will enrich us all. Thank you. Peace, Dave. This one is from Jamie Hassmeyer and was received on April 19th. For the consideration of City Council, I am writing to show my enthusiastic support for adjusting the current zoning to 9145 2-family residential to allow more diversified housing assortment in Webster Groves. This is critical as we work to demand a more equitable society and begin to dismantle systemic racism. I am also in enthusiastic support of 9146 residential dimensional requirements so that the integrity of our housing stock and its character and charm be respected and maintained, not bulldozed. Equally important to me is the size of the structure as it pertains to the amount of impervious surfaces. The warming of our climate has begun to play out right in front of our eyes, and for many of us, our backyards, with increased precipitation during rain events that have us experiencing 100-year floods every couple of years. Greater rain events are abusive to our waterway system, in some parts with pipes that are 100 years old, and threaten our regional drinking water supply. The development of the land in Webster Groves must reflect zoning that acknowledges science and prioritizes the health of its citizens. Climate change is a crisis that can no longer be considered a niche issue and must be a lens we must look through for each issue in our city as it touches everything. And then our last one is from Daniel Berzini, was received on the 20th today. The mission statement of Webster Groves government says that it is committed to providing professional, efficient, and responsible services and to working with citizens to enhance its position as a premier place to live, work, and raise a family. With regards to rezoning the A4 district, Mara Perry said she was directed to do so at the request of the City Council in March of 2020, and not at the request of the residents in the 5,560 homes of the A4 district. The A4 district represents a supermajority of 69% of Webster Groves, so why wasn't there a citizens petition for it or a ballot initiative to discuss it as given the transformative impact rezoning most of Webster would have? After all, residents are at the top of the city's organizational chart, and the mission of the city government involves working with citizens. Webster Groves is known as the queen of the suburbs, and the mission of its city government is to enhance its position as a premier place to live, work, and raise a family. Increasing population density, straining infrastructure, and more traffic does not seem to be premier outcomes through A4 rezoning and the ongoing SG collaborative. We already have a diverse range of single-family housing. Mara Perry said 170 new homes have been built in the last 10 years. 17 new houses per year out of 8,000 plus homes amounts to just 0.21% per year, or about the same as a Webster Groves house getting hit by lightning. Mara Perry said these houses are on average only 351 square feet bigger, or about 2 more rooms bigger. This doesn't sound like much of a McMansion problem. With the rejection of Proposition 1 by Webster Groves residents, wouldn't home improvements contributing to Webster Groves being a premier place to live, work, and play also pay higher property taxes? Rezoning 69% of Webster Groves without a vote of the residents and without a petition sounds more like a personal crusade of the City Council, more suitable for a GoFundMe page than a public ordinance. I would encourage the City Council to reread their mission statement, be public servants, and personally engage our community. It certainly would be more professional, efficient, and responsible than creating a new director of public affairs position whose starting salary is $90,000 per year, adding more administrative staff, more pensions, and their customary twice-a-year pay raises. Dan. And then I think we do have a hand up. Clark Hoteling, and I'm going to allow you to talk. Yeah, you have 3 minutes. I think you'll need to unmute.
Done. And I will not take 3 minutes. Simply want to reiterate what I said a couple of weeks ago, that I really am impressed with council's stated goal to help add a more diverse housing stock to our community. And I agree that with Mara and her staff, that this is not a huge thing, and it won't be change overnight. I think this is a very small step towards in the right direction. And I just, I cringe every time I hear some of the language in the opposition, because it just screams exclusion to me. And I think having more options is so much more of a value for me as a member of this community than fewer options. So thank you for your hard work, and thanks a lot.
Alrighty, is there anyone else? All right.
Okay, thank you, Jen.
Uh-huh.
All right. Are there any more questions or issues from council? Do we need to keep this public hearing open, or can we close it?
Frankly,
I
I
move that
mean,
we close it.
Okay, I have one who wants to close it. David?
I think there's a motion on the table, so
There was no,
Well, if there's no second.
there's no motion yet.
Oh.
I'm trying to get the feeling of the council.
Frankly, this is just me speaking personally. I would rather spend some more time thinking about this, but I completely understand if I am in the minority there. But I mean, I would vote to keep it open right now.
Okay, anyone else want to weigh in on this?
I would vote to close it. I think it's, it's been worked on for a long time.
All right, so somebody can make a motion to close it, and then we can see where that flies.
Mayor, I'd like to move that we close the public hearing on bill number 9145.
Second.
Any discussion? Then let's call for the vote.
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Arnold,
No.
Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin,
No.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Mayor Welsh.
No. So it has passed and the public hearing is closed.
Mayor, I would now move for the admission of the exhibits that have been proposed by the Planning and Zoning Department. It is a long list for ordinance number 9145. It includes the draft redlined zoning code amendments for attached housing. For discussion purposes, the IRES Netcom Boulder attached homes could be focused for affordable housing dated February 26th. Another article called Eye on Housing from Townhouse Construction Surges dated August 2018. Metrostudy.com from Greater Salt Lake Housing 2Q18 dated August 22, 2018. New York Times, Housing Market Slows as Rising Prices Outpace Wages dated September of 2018. Slate.com article dated December 14 of 2018. CityLab.com article dated January of 2019. City of St. Petersburg multifamily development, townhouse or condominium development package. The City of Tacoma, Washington affordable housing package. The HUD Evidence Matters Landlords and Vouchers dated winter of 2019. Zoning practice issue number 6, article dated June of 2019, zoning practice issue number 5, article dated May of 2020. Would also move to include the Plan Commission staff report by Mara Perry, Director of Planning and Development, for a meeting dated December 7th of 2020. PowerPoint slides from the November 2nd, 2020 meeting. Plan Commission staff report by Mara Perry, Director of Planning and Development, for meeting date January 4th, 2021. January 7th, 2021, preliminary draft code amendments. The PowerPoint slides from the December 7th, 2020 meeting. Maps of all A4 residential lots separating conforming and non-conforming lot sizes. Plan Commission staff report by Mara Perry, Director of Planning and Development, for a meeting dated February 1st of 2021. February 1st, 2021, preliminary draft code amendments. Excuse me. PowerPoint slides from January 4, 2021 meeting. Plan Commission staff report by Mara Perry dated March 1st of 2021. March 1st of 2021, preliminary draft code amendments. PowerPoint slides from February 1st, 2021 meeting. Minutes of the October 5, 2020, November 2nd, 2020, December 7th, 2020, January 7th, 2021, February 1st, 2021, and March 1st of 2021 commission meetings. April 6, 2021 draft code amendments. The Director of Planning and Development's PowerPoint before City Council on April the 6th of 2021. There were emails dated from October 29th of 2020 through April the 20th of 2021. And finally, the zoning code for the City of Webster Groves.
All right, and thank you very much, Neil. With that, truly, the public hearing is closed. And we will now go to Bill 9145, and I'm going to do this alphabetically again. Karen, could you ask for the first and second reading, please?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to ask for the first and second reading of Bill 9145.
Second.
All right. Pardon me just a minute. I have to get back to that. Bill 9145, first reading. An ordinance amending Chapter 53, the zoning code of Webster Groves, by amending the use and dimensional regulations for single-family attached and two-family dwellings in the A4 7,500 square foot residence district in sections 53.070 et sequentia, 53.100, and amended definitions related to those uses in section 53.020 and matters related thereto.
Are there any questions, issues, or discussion? Then let's have the second reading.
Second reading of Bill 9145, an ordinance amending Chapter 53, the zoning code of Webster Groves, by amending the use and dimensional regulations for single-family attached and two-family dwellings in the A4 7,500 square foot residence district in section 53.070 et sequentia, 53.100, and amended definitions related to those uses in section 53.020 and matters related thereto.
And I will remind everyone that this is not the final vote on this. So those who have other questions, comments, issues, the public who has something that they want to say about this, this will not be voted on until the next meeting, which is the first meeting of May. All right, let's open the second public hearing here, which was also continued over. And these are zoning code text amendments for residential dimensional regulations. Proposed amendments include changes to sections 53.043, 053, 063, 073, and 202 to clarify lot coverage and height regulations in the A1 through A4 residence districts, and amended definitions related to the dimensional regulations in section 53.020. So Mara, I go to you and see if there's anything additional you have to add or say.
Nothing additional to add, same as the last one. I had no other additional comments or questions that people had asked for further clarification on, but I'm available to answer any questions.
Does anyone from council have a question, issue, or comment? All right, then we will go to Jen and Katie. Do we have any either question, a remark that needs to be added? You're muted, Katie.
We're checking to see if there's any hands raised. We do not have any additional comments and no hands raised.
No hands raised. Okay. So if there's nothing to add or discuss here, do I have a motion to close this public hearing?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing for bill number 9146.
Second.
Any discussion? Then let's call for the vote.
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin,
No.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Mayor Welsh,
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold.
Yes.
All right. So that public hearing is almost closed until Neil enters all his list of stuff to enter.
I will
Indeed.
continue reading the War and Peace entry of Exhibit List Ordinance 9146. That would include the Plan Commission staff report by Mara Perry dated October 5th, 2020. The current zoning code adopted via Ordinance 8967 approved in June of 2017. The City Council PowerPoint slides from July of 2016 and updates from 2020. Plan Commission staff report by Mara Perry dated December 7th, 2020. PowerPoint slides from the November 2nd, 2020 meeting. New homes maps updated on November of 2020. New homes spreadsheet of data. Plan Commission staff report by Mara Perry dated January 4th, 2021. January 7th, 2021 preliminary draft code amendments. PowerPoint slides from the December 7, 2020 meeting. New homes map updated November of 2020. Map of house square footages. New home graphs. Map of all 7,500 square foot or less lots. Map of all A4 residential lots separating conforming and non-conforming lot sizes. Plan Commission staff report by Mara Perry dated February 1st of 2021. February 1st of 2021 preliminary draft code amendments. PowerPoint slides from the January 4, 2021 meeting. Plan Commission staff report by Mara Perry dated, Perry dated March 1st of 2021. March 1st of 2021 preliminary draft code amendments. PowerPoint slides from the February 1st, 2021 meeting. Letter from the Home Builders Association dated February 1st, 2021. Minutes of the October 5, 2020, November 2nd, 2020, December 7, 2020, January 7th, 2021, February 1st, 2021, and March 1st, 2021 commission meeting. April 6, 2021 draft code amendments. The Director of Planning and Development's PowerPoint before the City Council on April the 6th, 2021. Two emails from Porrick McGrath dated 4/19 of 2021 and Jamie Hasemeyer dated 4/19 of 2021. And finally, the zoning code of the City of Webster Groves. And that would conclude the exhibit list.
And that will close the public hearing officially. So we will go to Councilwoman Arnold for bill number 9146, please.
Yes, Mayor, I move for the first and second reading of bill number 9146.
Second.
Bill 9146, first reading. An ordinance amending Chapter 53, the zoning code of Webster Groves by amending the dimensional regulations to clarify lot coverage and height regulations in section 53.043, 53.053, 53.063, 53.073, and 53.202, and amending definitions related to the dimensional regulations in section 53.020 and matters related thereto.
All right. Anyone have a question or comment or need a change? If not, Neil will go for that second reading, please.
Bill 9146, second reading. An ordinance amending Chapter 53, the zoning code of Webster Groves by amending the dimensional regulations to clarify lot coverage and height regulations in section 53.043, 53.053, 53.063, 53.073, and 53.202, and amending definitions related to the dimensional regulations in section 53.020 and matters related thereto.
All right. And again, we'll remind the public that if you have a question or an issue, the final vote will be taken on this possibly at the next council meeting. All right, we will move on to remarks of visitors. And here we go to Katie and Jen again. And I presume we have several.
We do have one remarks of visitors written, and then we will check for any hands up. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. This is from Dave Buck, and it was received on the 18th. To our mayor, city council, city staff, and Jenny Starkey. My comments below are not critical, but they are curious and hopefully constructive. Number one, may I please congratulate Eric Peterson and Jenny Starkey on their respective new positions with the city. I have never met Eric, but I have known Jenny for many years, and she is, in a word, awesome. And she will make a huge difference in achieving excellence in this much needed responsibility. Two, there is a very real perception of concern and questions among some residents regarding the sudden and recent resignation of Joanne Jadali. It would be appreciated if the city was forthcoming with the real story and truth. Number three, the city council has embraced the need for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Webster University and the Webster Grove School District have each hired a DEI director, Vincent Fluellen and Sean Williamson, and achieved great impact and progress. Many believe the city should do the same, similar in concept to Jenny's new position and hiring. Four, correspondingly, previous multiple council work sessions focused on DEI training and community conversations, but they seem to have vanished from the scene. Just curious what, if anything, is happening here. Five, per the city's website, the last council visional directions and goals are dated fiscal year 2018-19. Is it too much to ask council to evaluate its past performance and to readdress these goals and update or change them 3 years later? Six, finally, like everyone who shares remarks with council, we are not visitors, but valued residents. Please consider changing the name of this agenda item to simply remarks for the good of the community. Thank you. Peace, Dave. And let's see if we have any hands up. I don't see any. Does anyone have anything? All right, I think we're good.
All right. Thank you very much. And we will continue on with our agenda. I don't think anyone has any new business to announce.
Actually, I do have a question about some new business that we've been waiting on. Do we have, Mia, an update on the wildlife rehabber, the state of that legislation?
I do. So what I've been doing is trying to get information from the Department of Conservation regarding how we create the lists. So we've been given a copy of, we have the Code of State Regulations, but it's very ambiguous as to what the list is and what it might mean and what animals might be included and what aren't. And the only, obviously, those are important things. I have some communication from the person who's interested in doing this, which would indicate there are limits, but we don't know how they're limiting this. So I don't know, again, as we create an ordinance, we obviously want to be concerned with things like size. And there's no way from the Code of State Regulations or the state statute, which is section 252, to figure out what any of that means. So that's what I'm looking to see, is that how we determine what goes on the list. Each permit has a list of allowed animals, but there's nothing that indicates how they figure that out. So that's what I'm asking them to clarify for us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Then we'll move on to unfinished business, bill number 9147, Pam Bliss.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the third and final reading of bill number 9147 and its subsequent adoption.
Second.
Bill 9147, third and final reading. An ordinance authorizing an agreement between St. Louis County and the city of Webster Groves for construction and ongoing maintenance of streetscape improvements in the Old Orchard Business District and other actions related thereto.
Any questions, comments, or issues? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Franklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Mayor Welsh,
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss.
Yes.
So 9147 is passed. 9148, Councilmember Franklin.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the third and final reading of bill number 9148 and its subsequent adoption.
Second.
Bill 9148, third and final reading. An ordinance amending Chapter 10, Public Ways and Places, Article 2, excavations, Section 10.120, application for permit to increase excavation permit fees to cover the additional costs of such inspections within the city of Webster Groves, and repealing ordinance 8791.
Any questions, issues, or comments?
I just had a question. Can someone give me an example of this? Like when this would be relevant?
There's Todd.
So when we issue an excavation permit, we collect a deposit, and the deposit is used to cover the costs of putting the street pavement back together to our standards. And the costs of doing that have risen over the years. I think the ordinance was originally passed in 2013. So we needed to increase those minimum deposit amounts so that we can make sure we get enough money up front to cover the costs. And then whatever is remaining in that deposit, we refund it back to the contractor. If we don't collect enough up front, then we have to bill the contractor, and we've had problems collecting in the past.
What would a homeowner be excavating?
It's not for homeowners. Typically, it's contractors that are digging up streets for sewer laterals, water service.
So is this like MSD, American Water?
Right. Well, if it's those contractors, we don't collect deposits from them because we guarantee. Well, we have agreements with them. They make sure that their contractors put it back to our standards,
So
and
why
we
would
don't put it. So on the other ones, we put the street back together, and we have to have those deposits to cover that cost.
So why would a contractor be digging up our street? I'm just trying to I'm just trying to understand when this is used. That's all.
Sewer lateral. Most of the time, it's sewer lateral repairs.
All right. And usually, the increase here is normally borne by the contractor.
Correct.
All right.
Because we're putting the street back, so we're saving them the expense of hiring somebody to do that. So, and we're just charging them for our, we have labor rates that we charge them, and then our costs for materials, rock, concrete, and asphalt.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks for explaining that. Does anyone care to remove anything from the consent agenda? If not, Sarah, could you call for its approval, please?
I don't think we voted on the 9148, did we?
Oh, did we? Katie? No. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Heavens, we want to make sure that Todd gets his money. So,
Are we ready?
yeah, we're ready.
Okay. Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Mayor Welsh,
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin.
Yes.
All right, 9148 has passed. Let's go on to the consent agenda. Does anyone care to remove anything? If not, Miss Sarah Richardson, Councilwoman Richardson, could you call for its approval, please?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Councilmember Alexander,
Yes.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Mayor Welsh,
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
All right, the consent agenda has been approved. Tonight, we have appointed Dee Dee Dooley to the Historic Preservation Commission. We've told CC Bartels that she will be the next appointee on the BDC, and we have reappointed Andrew Schiavato to the Business Development Commission. And we are going to go into an executive closed session. Neil, can you tell me exactly which ones, or tell Laura exactly which ones these are so she can call for the
Our resident closed session expert. Yes, it's
Yes,
sections
she is.
1, 2, and 4 as contained in your agenda.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to call for the executive closed session regarding #1, attorney-client privilege communications, Missouri Statute 610.021, open paren 1, closed paren. #2, real estate, Missouri Statute 610.021, open paren 2, closed paren, and 4, negotiated contract, Missouri Statute 610.021, open paren 12, closed paren.
Second.
Councilmember Richardson,
Yes.
Mayor Welsh,
Yes.
Councilmember Arnold,
Yes.
Councilmember Bliss,
Yes.
Councilmember Franklin,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Alexander.
Yes.
All right, we are going to go into closed session. I want to thank all the attendees who have sat in on this. This is a good thing to keep up with what's going on in your community. And I've noticed that Eric Peterson has joined us tonight. So thank you all very much. And we're going to go into executive closed session.